So the March for Life, which was last week, which we talked about in the previous episode. And as always, it was a great event. People marching for the unborn, to protect babies in the womb. And in the midst of that, there were, an interview that was printed in an article from Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, where she made the comparison about ending abortion, where is comparable to the fight to end slavery. And that just caused such a tizzy amongst especially the Democrats, leftists, progressives, and whatnot. And I saw one, Ayanna Pressley, she was, all upset on Twitter, talking about say it to my face and all that. And you know what I would say? You ought to say this to her face, Betsy DeVos, or if not, I would love to say it to her face. I have no problem. I would say this: as cruel and atrocious the injustice of slavery is, abortion is a greater evil than slavery, because abortion results in 100% death.
From the highways of America, here's the podcast where we talk politics, a little entertainment, some culture, and this and that, from the road to your ears. This is Trend Chat with your host, Brian Bledsoe.
And welcome to another episode of Trend Chat. I am your host, Brian Bledsoe, and if you want to connect with us, one of on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, it's all the same name at Trend Chat 24/7. So, I guess, I don't know, was that a hot take or not? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but yeah, anyway. Like I said, we talked about the March for Life last week, and so we're going to talk about on this episode. So we talked with director Michael Pack. He directed a film called Created Equal, Clarence Thomas, in his own words. And we're going to play that interview. And the film, as we're recording, it is, well, right now I think it's like Friday morning. I'm currently in Denver, Colorado, which is snowing. Well, I guess I'll get back to that in a minute, but yeah, so we're going to talk with director Michael Pack about the film and just ask about how this came about and everything like that, because as I mentioned in the interview, Justice Thomas is not one of the most vocal justices in the Supreme Court. You normally don't hear from any Supreme Court justice in general, but so to have him to agree to do this documentary was surprising, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the film this weekend. So I'm going to say this because I think it needs to be said plenty of a number of times in this podcast, because if you're listening and it's that, the weekend of the 31st, check out Created Equal and go to justicethomasmovie.com to check for showtimes in your area. It's going to be shown in select theaters. And so, yeah, just go to justicethomasmovie.com and check it out. We're going to mention it a couple of times in the interview, but like I said, I think it needs to be mentioned a couple of times now, because really will hope for people to go to check out the movie. But before we get into anything else, I do want to mention about 1776united.com. I want y'all to check that out. And I'll say that again, 1776united.com. All sorts of patriotic gear, and with hats, shirts, mugs, all of that. And check them out. Put in the code TRENDCHAT. You get 20% off. So check them out at 1776united.com. Now, before I guess I might will get to this because I'm pretty sure by now everyone knows about what happened to Kobe Bryant this past weekend. And I guess I know for me, I think we all just remember, moments, certain events, kind of like everyone. You remember when maybe certain celebrities die or something, or certain events, pretty sure everyone has a memory of 9/11 or stuff like that. And I know I have a number of, of memories of, celebrities dying and what I was doing when I heard the news or whatnot. And any time, a celebrity, especially someone, I don't know, regardless whether I like their music or their movies or whatnot, it wasn't really something where I really was affected. I mean, my heart went out to the family because regardless if they're a celebrity or not, it's having a death, especially something as sudden like what happened with Kobe, is a very devastating moment, and for the family especially. But I will say this because for me, this hit a little different, and I know why, because Kobe was one of my favorite players. So I really have 4 favorite players. Now they're all retired. So. But it was Kobe, Shaq, Emmitt Smith, Deion Sanders. Those are my 4 favorite players. And so this is the first time having one of those players, someone that I used to, watch all the time playing basketball and all that. And so I would say it was a day I'm not going to forget, especially because of that. And I would say I was glad that I had someone with me, actually, because I was with a friend of mine, and we heard the news at the same time, and we both are fans of Kobe. So when we first heard it, well, one, we had to see was it a hoax or whatever, and I think first thing I saw was TMZ. Well, first, my friend got a call from, about it. And I was like, well, okay. I mean, maybe, I don't know. And then first thing I did was check Twitter. And so I saw Kobe Bryant was trending. So that means one or two things. Either it's real or it's a hoax. And people are trying to say that it's not true. Either way, he was trending. So I'm like, okay, something's going on. And so then I was able to, watch something because I have Sling TV on my phone. So I went to Fox News or any news that had it on. And then that's when I saw it there. I'm like, okay, now it's real. So yeah, it was, because like I said, this is something I'm not going to forget. So when the news came out and getting there, the realization that this really happened, me and my friend were just sitting in the car, just watching it, for about, I don't know. I honestly don't remember. It was probably like 15, 30 minutes. We just sitting in the car looking at the news about it. And yeah, so, and as the time went by on Sunday, so, and like I said, it's going to be something for me in particular because we was hiking, because, I was taking a couple of days off in Arizona, and so me and my friend, we went hiking and whatever, and right when we finished, got in the car, phone rung, and that's when the news was going around and all that. And so like I said, we both were Kobe fans, and we talked about it and whatnot. But it made it a lot easier, because I can just imagine it probably been a lot more downtrodden, I guess, in a way. At least on Sunday, especially, just all the tributes started coming out and everything. So, but that being said, that's just something I know for me personally. That was different, I'm not the sort, that really get caught up in a lot of, what are celebrities or whatever like that, because like I said, I don't know any of these people. Now, I don't know Kobe, so, but it was just more so because of me appreciating his, what he did on the court and all that. And so, yeah, it just, it was a little different feeling, I guess. And also, I said I wasn't going to really talk about this, but I'm going to now, because it's sticking in the back of my head, because I understand the attention and that is going behind having the coverage about Kobe Bryant and everything, because he had millions of fans, and for decades. I mean, he played in the league for 20 years, and even before then, I mean, he was a celebrity for decades. And so I understand the reason why there's so much coverage, and I know there's plenty of people who I've seen it. I've seen it on social media that with all the condolences and everything for Kobe, then you have these other group of people who would want to just hop up and just say, like, well, what about so and so? I'm not even going to just mention like a particular story, because someone will mention about, well, why isn't whether it could be veterans, it could be anyone. They'll bring up, well, why this person not getting this much attention about what happened to them. Well, I don't know why it's difficult to understand why, because you didn't really know anything about whoever else that would have died. Like, I'm a veteran, so if something would have happened to me when I was in the Army, I don't expect to have 24-hour news coverage about me. I mean, what I would at least expect, right, is for the Army to do their part and to inform my family, and to and all the proper arrangements are made. But I'm not expecting to have have coverage like a person who has a following of millions. I don't have that. So why would I expect that? And I don't know. I guess it comes from a place of hurt for the family of some of those, because they feel like they should get that recognition. And when we're talking about news or anything, or any sort of coverage, that's the reason why. And so I don't see. I sympathize, but I think we should be more realistic as far as when it comes to that. So, like I said, again, so I didn't want to get into that. Like I said, because that may be, I don't want to come across like I'm not sympathetic to anyone, actually, because it's not just, regardless if we're talking about veterans or just talking about any person, because this is something that happens every day. And It's something that we all have to deal with, and we're going to all have to deal with it ourselves as well. And so, with the sudden nature of Kobe, I think it's something that we all should really consider, as far as you never know when it's your last day. And this will be the time for me to say, I will hope that you have put your faith and trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, because you never know. And you shouldn't hold off on that. If you're thinking about it, or you've been, or even not thinking about it, I would pray that you would think about it now if you're listening to this. But yeah, if Kobe's an example of showing that, in one sense, you definitely need to, you never know when that day is going to come. So, oh boy, that was that was more than I thought I was gonna say. But on a lighter note, we're gonna play our interview with Michael Pack coming up, and yeah. So again, just think about it. You never know when it's your time to go.
Hey, I'm Amy Robbins.
And I'm Emily Valentine. And we are not
your average gun girls.
And you're listening to Trend Chat with Brian Bledsoe.
Hello to fans of Trend Chat and Brian Bledsoe. The Founding Project, an education nonprofit dedicated to civics, invites you to visit our brand new website. Visit us at thefoundingproject.com. Be a part of the civics movement with The Founding Project. The Founding Project is a 501c3 education nonprofit. Please join us today.
Hello, this is Trend Chat, and we are very pleased to have Michael Pack with us. He is the director of an upcoming documentary that will be in theaters on January 31st called Created Equal, Justice Thomas in his own words. And we want to bring him on to talk about film and what we can talk about, because we don't want to give away the movie. So, how are you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on Trend Chat.
Most people, general public, really don't know anything about Supreme Court justices. I mean, kind of when you see these like man on the street interviews where they ask people about Supreme Court justices, and it tends to be like they know none of them.
Right.
But when it comes to Justice Thomas, he's even, he's one of the less vocal of all of them, really. And so a documentary like this is definitely will be something eye-opening for a lot of people, given they get the chance to watch it. But my question I want to ask you is that why did he agree to participate in this documentary?
Well, he got tired of having his story defined by his enemies and the myths and half-truths about it. So I had heard that from mutual friends, and once I met him and heard his full story, his very dramatic life story, which not that many people know, I really felt the need to tell it and to get it out in a movie and into movie theaters and to change the public's perception of Justice Thomas. And
I guess, what is the timeline of the documentary? I've seen the trailer, and it seems like it's kind of going from almost seemed like from childhood on to being named for the nomination and so forth. But
that's right. It goes right from his birth all the way up to today.
Okay.
It's called Just Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words, because we want Clarence Thomas to tell his story, and so it's really based on a long interview I conducted with Justice Thomas and, to a lesser extent, his wife, Ginny. I spoke to them for over 30 hours over a 6-month period, and Justice Thomas looks right in camera and tells his dramatic story as he experienced it right from the beginning, and even his birth is dramatic. I mean, he was born in Pinpoint, Georgia, a Gullah-speaking area on the coast, just outside of Savannah. So English wasn't his first language. He grew up really poor. His father left before he could remember. And then then his mother, when he was about 6, his mother brought him from Pinpoint to Savannah, where, as he said, he went from rural poverty to urban squalor. And there he had a kind of poverty few of us have experienced. He was hungry in the winter. He was hungry. It was cold in the winter. He didn't have a proper bed. And it was the segregated South. I mean, it wasn't just poverty. It was poverty plus Jim Crow. And when his mother brought him to school, he would just leave and no one cared. He'd wander the streets of Savannah until finally, after several years, she realized she just couldn't take care of Justice Thomas himself and his brother on her salary as a maid, and brought him to her father, his grandfather, to raise. And that's what turned Justice Thomas's life around. His grandfather had a small heating oil business, not a lot of money, but some. He was not well educated, but he believed in education, and he gave Justice Thomas discipline, hard work, a biblically based value system, he was himself Catholic, and sent Justice Thomas to parochial school. And there, unlike the school where he'd just leave and wander around, it was run by these Irish nuns. It was all black, but they were white Irish nuns. And they gave him a great education, Catholic values, but lots of hard work, lots of self-discipline. And he thrived in that environment up to the point where he even decided he wanted to be a priest and went to the seminary to study to be a priest. So it's already lots of twists and turns in his life, and we're only, at high school. So it's a very dramatic story.
So, and you said it was, 30 hours?
I spoke to him for an interview, yes. Uh-huh.
Wow.
Over 6 months in 3 and 4 hour groups. But yeah, so no one has ever spoken to a Supreme Court justice for such a long time. They don't usually give interviews. And as you said, Justice Thomas is famous for not giving interviews. Yeah. He was burned by the media during his contentious confirmation battle. But we are lucky, honored, that he gave us all this time and trusted us to tell his story.
So with the 30 hours of all the interview time, so how long is the documentary? I mean, that's a lot to edit.
It's a lot to edit. It took us a whole year to edit. I credit my editor, Faith Jones, who did the hard work, but we worked together. And the whole team, but especially Faith. It's 2 hours, which makes sound like a long time for a documentary, but everybody who sees it says the time goes quickly. I mean, look, I've only told you his life up to high school, and it takes me a long time, and it's gone from poverty and racism and the Catholic Church, and then he falls away from his faith. It's 1968. He's watching TV in the seminary, and there's been a bunch of racist incidents, but the one that caps it off is they're watching TV when Martin Luther King Jr. is shot, and a white seminarian, the seminaries have been all white, he was one of the first to integrate it. A white seminarian says, "I hope that son of a bitch dies." And that really capped off Justice Thomas's feeling that the Catholic Church wasn't doing enough for civil rights. He didn't want to be a priest anymore. He told his grandfather, who kicked him out of the house, and then he went through a radical period where race and racism explained everything. He was an angry black man, as he said, when he had to go wherever he could, and he luckily had full tuition scholarship at Holy Cross in Worcester. But there, he continued his radicalism. He hung around with Marxist students. They invited Black Panthers to speak. They engaged in a walkout. He supported everybody, as he said, who was in your face, from Malcolm X to Huey Newton to Angela Davis. So then it's only till he hits bottom that he finally goes back to his faith in a very dramatic moment, towards the end of Holy Cross. So now we're only at the end of college. So it's a very dramatic story. Justice Thomas tells it feelingly and beautifully, unlike yours truly.
For myself, I'm thinking because, when you mentioned about all the time that you spoke with him, I would wonder one day will we be able to at least see most of the interview one day. I know we're not going to see that now, but like I said, that was a long time to be speaking with him. I'm pretty sure there's probably other little details we probably, would like to learn as well. So, but
I think it is a historic document, and one day I will make it available. Absolutely, Brian.
So the title called "Created Equal." What was the idea for that?
Well, the Created Equal obviously comes from the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's really one of the linchpins of Justice Thomas's life and his jurisprudence, that we're all equal under God. Doesn't mean we're all the same. It doesn't mean that we need equality of outcome, but we have equal rights. And that's from God, from the laws of nature and nature's God, as Thomas Jefferson said. And that forms the basis of how he sees the world. And you see that work itself out in the film. And that's one of the threads. His Catholic faith is another thread. The values of his grandfather are a thread. And these things are all work together. And so that's why we called it that.
And in the documentary, did he give any, I guess, opinions on any cases that he heard or anything like that?
Well, we have him talk about one case, a affirmative action case called Grutter. And so you get a feeling for how he decides cases. He, of course, wouldn't talk about a case that's coming up.
Yeah.
He talks about other things in the 30 hours, but in our experience, Brian, people are more interested in his dramatic life story than too much of a detailed analysis of cases. Justice Thomas is a great judicial thinker, and he's written over 600 opinions, 30% more than any other sitting Supreme Court justice. So he doesn't speak a lot on the court in oral argument, but he writes a lot. But these are very scholarly 30-page arguments. You know, people do not really want to hear that. I thought it would be better to tell his dramatic story and get a sense of his values and principles which underlie his jurisprudence.
Oh, I totally understand where you come from. I'm just, me myself, that's how I would.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why. I mean, so if I was editing and putting together a documentary, I'd probably do a bad job at it, because I would be, you know, if you talked about these cases, I would get all in the weeds about it, then it'd be like a 4 or 5 hour movie. So, I know that's what I want to hear, but I understand where you're coming from. So I'm guessing the whole nomination process and what was going on there, because I know I'm 39, so I don't remember it that clearly. I was a kid when it was all going on, but I do remember it happening. And so I guess you recount what was going on at that time.
Yes, he tells the story of his confirmation battle, which was very dramatic. You know, after he became a conservative and went to work for Ronald Reagan and was a public figure, he was always attacked by the left and the people who disagreed with him. But it reached a peak in his confirmation battle. And after a first week or so of 5 days of questioning by the Senate Judiciary Committee, they had voted 7-7 and sent his nomination to the full Senate. And then Anita Hill's testimony alleging sexual harassment by Clarence Thomas was leaked. And then the Senate Judiciary Committee reconvened, and heard testimony from Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas. Now, people your age may not remember that Anita Hill did not accuse him of physical harassment, which is now so common, and especially as the Harvey Weinstein trial goes on. She accused him of talking about pornographic movies, saying inappropriate things that indeed do qualify as sexual harassment, but on the scale of these things, nothing like Harvey Weinstein or anybody else accused of physical assault. Still, what she said was harassment, and she asserted he denied it. And he talks about what it's like to suddenly have these charges that you feel are completely baseless come down, and what it took to respond, and how he and his wife, they were newly married, had to really rely on their faith to see them through that very difficult time.
So, well, you said the editing was, about a year it took to put all this together. So when was the interview?
I don't even remember, but it was at least a year and a half ago. I mean, it was before Kavanaugh hearings and before the Me Too movement even got too much underway. So, and that's kind of the reason why I'm asking, because I want to ask. So while this was going on, we had the whole Kavanaugh nomination going on. That's right.
And I want to ask you, like, were you seeing parallels of what was going on in the present time and while you was doing this documentary?
That's right. It was eerie. Exactly right. And it seemed to me that the Kavanaugh hearings followed the same playbook as the Thomas hearings. They waited very late on purpose. The Democrats waited very late to release the charges against Kavanaugh, and they were similar. I mean, they were, weakly founded charges, and there was a hope that just the assertion would drive Kavanaugh away, and it did not, as it did not with Justice Thomas. But I think the Thomas hearings was the beginning of when people would just feel that leveling these charges, you can level these charges at anybody, and they're very, very hard to respond to. I mean, look, I am not denying the reality of many of these charges. I think it's a great thing that the Me Too movement has exposed real harassment that exists, in many, many areas of American life. And I think very, very often women are not listened to. It was only several years after the Thomas hearings, after all, that Bill Clinton was president, and many, many charges came up against him, against women who were trashed and not listened to. So I'm all for listening to women, and most of those charges are true, but some are not. And they're very hard to respond to, and it's very easy to level those charges against somebody.
Yeah, so the movie comes out January 31st, and so if people want to know where they can watch the film, they can go to the website, and the website is what?
The website is justicethomasmovie.com. They can go there. We list all the theaters where it's playing starting January 31st. But if it's not playing in a theater near you and you have a big enough group, we can make a special screening happen if you sign up on the website. But I really urge your listeners to go. If you care, if you're interested, buy tickets. You can't have movies like this if people don't go to theaters and show up. And it's in, 21 cities, New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Dallas, Houston, Chicago. I mean, lots of cities. I urge you to go, and even if it's a theater that's 15 or 20 minutes away or even a half hour, I urge you to drive and go. I urge you to bring people who you don't necessarily agree with on some of these issues. I think it's a great thing to discuss. I think it's a moving story, whatever your politics. And I hope it's inspiring to the people who see it as it was to me to make it.
Yeah, and I second all of that, and I will, me being on the road as I am, hopefully I will be in a city this weekend, wherever I'm driving to, and be able to catch it wherever.
I hope so. Go to that website, justicethomasmovie.com, and, see what's the closest one to you.
All right. Well, Micah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and we hope to talk with you again soon.
I hope so, too. Thank you very much, Brian.
Hey everyone, this is Lucia Scaramacchia, and you are listening to Trend Chat.
All right, and thanks to Michael for joining us. And again, justicethomasmovie.com to check for show times. And so, as I mentioned, I'm in Denver, but I don't know if I'm going to be here Friday night or whatnot. So I don't know where I'll be this weekend. Hopefully I will be somewhere. Wherever I'm at to go check it out. But, if you're listening to this, I don't think you will have that much of a problem. Or at least as far as, if there's a screening in your city. So check it out at justicethomasmovie.com. And so, again, thanks to Michael for joining us. And before we go, I had a couple other things I wanted to mention because I know this clip from CNN with Don Lemon and his panel just having themselves a good old laugh riot about making fun of Trump supporters, and that has made the rounds to the point to where Don Lemon came out and just said a bunch of words because it definitely was no apology. You just said some stuff. And I mean, if he thinks people are as stupid as he was laughing about before, I guess he's like, well, I could just say something. They stupid enough. They'll accept that. So that's, cause that's how he came across with that, whatever that was. It wasn't an apology, but it's not even really about that for me. What I hope will come out of all of this, which unfortunately I don't think it will, because it's not going to get much attention. Just the attention that it's getting is just amongst us as conservatives, and we're the ones that are really kind of paying more attention to it than anything. And because the rest of the media is not going to report about it, mainly because they agree with they what you saw in that on that little panel with Don Lemon and those two. That's what you were seeing was what they do behind closed doors. They just it just slipped out that Saturday, and that's all it is. So I don't expect the media to ABC or none of them. I don't expect them to report anything about it or feel any sort of shame, because they agree with them. So. But what I would hope this would highlight is that CNN, just like pretty much all the rest of the media, are not objective. And I wish that's the one thing I want people to realize, is that CNN and all these other, ABC, NBC, all of them, they're not objective. I'm stressing it like that because whenever someone brings up Fox News, they always want to say, well, that's the conservative network, or that's the the right wing network, or whatever like that. They always want to put some sort of disclaimer or whatever whenever they talk about Fox News, like, well, that's the right wing, they're biased, so they're not objective. Meanwhile, all the rest of the other media are on the opposite end of the spectrum, but they're considered to be objective. I mean, I guess unless you're talking about MSNBC, I guess that if you looking at two sides of it, there, when you mention about Fox News, they'll say they're more right wing, and then if you say MSNBC, they'll admit that they're more left wing. Meanwhile, if you really just look at it, it's really all of them: CNN, CBS, ABC, all, take your pick. They're all on the left. Maybe some are more moderately left, but they're all left. They're not objective. None of them are. And I just hope something like this would highlight that, and something would shine a light on this, and more people would actually understand that. So that's what I hope, because I don't say, I'm not going to say like, well, Don Lemon should be fired or whatever like that for what he said and all that. No, I mean, let them say what they want to say. Like I said, I don't really have the problem about what they said. I disagree with it, but I would just wish they would be more honest about their reporting, as opposed to, coming across as their objective journalists, which they're not. They're just not. So anyway, we're going to come to the end of this episode. And, I said last week that we were going to get back to our candidate series, which I thought we was. I really did. But we're going to next week. We will next week. We have to, because we have to make sure we get all these interviews out, especially for the Texas primary. So we will get back to that next week. And also, thank you for listening. Like, share, subscribe. We're available Google Play, most popular podcast outlets. So like, share, subscribe. Appreciate you listening. And until next week, we'll chat with you later.